Hello and welcome to TheFederal. You're watching Off the Beaten Track, a program in which we decide on a subject and we talk about various aspects of it. Now, today we are going to be talking about the union government, which is about to complete 100 days in office. It's a good occasion to take stock of where we have come in the last 100 days since the government assumed charge. Now, as we all know, the 2024 elections was actually a verdict of change of some kind. We will try to assess what kind of change there has been. We still do not know that how the government is going to be marking this milestone to speak of in the politics of Mr. Modi. There are always milestones. There was some talk in one of the interviews which he gave to numerous television channels prior to the verdict that he is also going to be marking 125 days of the government, increasing it from the 100 days target that he had set. Now, the overconfidence of Mr. Modi that he is going to come back to power with an overwhelming majority became very clear when in February he set up as many as 10 super committees headed by various secretaries to prepare an agenda for 100 days. Now, all that appears to have been forgotten because nobody seems to be talking much about it. We will not talk about the official narrative of what they say are their gains. We will be taking stock of where we have come in the last 3 months or so. Talking to me is Professor Apoorvanand, who teaches in the Delhi University. Now, very importantly, he is not a teacher of political science. He, in fact, teaches Hindi literature, and Hindi, the subject, the language. But he is in the next generation of public intellectuals, if we can call anybody one of them. Apoorvanand is certainly one of them. So first of all, welcome to the show, Apoorvanand. Thank you. It's always a privilege to speak to you and get to hear what is there in your mind. So let me start with the fact that the 2024 verdict heralded a return to the coalition era, at least as far as in reality, in literal terms, it goes. But how much of return to the coalition era there has been in letter and in spirit?
Thank you. You're right that 2024 mandate was interpreted as a return of Indian politics to one government of coalition, and second, return of politics in true competitive sense, that hegemony of one single party was broken and voices of opposition and different political parties also became very prominent, and that we could see in the parliament. Because if we recall the parliament of the earlier regime and compare it with the parliament we saw in 2024 post May, post 4 June, we could see that it was a very vibrant parliament where opposition registered its voice and government was on the defensive, and that is how it should be. Parliaments are meant to be like that. The government has to be answerable. Earlier, it was not like that. So the expectation was that in terms of governance, the coalition dharma will return, and it will be a governance which won't be monarchical the way it has been for last 10 years, that there is a monarch ruling and his whims and fancies become policies. Here, it will be a consultative process in which different coalition partners sit with each other and reach a conclusion. Now, that is not very clear whether that has been the case or not, because if you look at only one case, that of the Waqf board bill that was presented in the parliament, we don't know whether the Bharatiya Janata Party had consulted its coalition partners or not before tabling that bill. Uh, if this was the case, then uh, after tabling of the bill, protest from Telugu Desam Party and uh, Janata Dal U won't have erupted. And that was also one of the reasons why uh, Narendra Modi had to be retreat, and the bill had to be sent to the standing committee or select committee for wider consultation and deeper consultation. So we can see a sign of uh, coalition politics returning. We don't yet know how assertive and effective it will be, and how willing Telugu Desam Party and Janata Dal U are to assert their numbers, because it's their numbers which hold BJP in power. So that is yet to be seen, whether they are willing to go extra mile to do that, or whether they are satisfied with the crumbs that are thrown before them. That will take this money and build Amaravati, or give whatever Nitish Kumar wants to stay in power in Bihar. So that is to be seen. But the second thing which you said, that return of the voice of opposition, that certainly we can see in parliament, which is a very healthy sign, and opposition feels emboldened, and that you can see in the parliament and outside parliament as well. The body language of Akhilesh Yadav, Rahul Gandhi, other political leaders of opposition has changed. And it has also forced the mainstream media, the big media, I don't call them mainstream, the big media, television channels and others, to take note of this opposition, and also give them space, and space with respect, although they still behave like mouth organs of the Bharatiya Janata Party, but they are forced to give space to opposition because of this increased number. So this is what we see in the first approximately 100 days.
Now, one of the issues on which there was pushback for the first instance, the backdrop was provided by the internal tussle within the BJP, especially the tussle going on between the central leadership and the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, in order to consolidate his constituency in the far right. During the Kanwar Yatra, which was in the month of the Hindu calendar, the month of Sawan, issued a notification saying that all food stall owners on the route of the Kanwar Yatra must put up display signs of who the owner is, the name, basically profiling those which are run by Muslims. Now, the central government was extremely fortunate that the Supreme Court said that this notification was wrong, it had to be taken back. But otherwise, the central government would have been forced to possibly act, because there had been a pushback besides the opposition from several coalition partners. They even went public. This was something new, that what is being discussed within the coalition is not being discussed indoors but in public. So as a result of which, the Supreme Court gave the order. Now, related to this is the issue that prior to that, there had been some instances of attacks on Muslims. Very few days ago, just as the Haryana elections started getting into motion, we had the attack on a Muslim in Haryana. We also had this very unfortunate tragedy where a Hindu youth was chased kilometers and then eventually killed because he was considered to be a cow smuggler by the so-called cow vigilante groups. Attacks on minorities had been one of the very unfortunate features of the last 10 years in Indian politics, which is virtually condoned by the central government. How much of situation has eased according to you in the last 3 months?
What is very ironical, I would say, is that the mandate has made opposition stronger, but it has made Muslims and Christians more vulnerable than ever before. because if you look at the number of attacks in these 100 days
Right.
and the number of Muslims killed, it is unprecedented. And the involvement of Hindus and common Hindus in anti-Muslim processions and demonstrations, it has increased multifold. So these two things are very contradictory. One, increased strength of the opposition and emboldened opposition, a vibrant parliament, and outside parliament, what we see is uh, Muslims being attacked rampantly, individually and collectively, hate speeches being given, and there is no restraint being exercised by the administration as well. What is even more disturbing, apart from this private Hindu citizen-led attack on Muslims, and this is now not confined to Bajrang Dal or Vishwa Hindu Parishad. Now, common Hindus are getting involved in these attacks. What is even more disturbing, and this we had noticed even in earlier times, is that the institutional reflexes have now mutated. They have changed. The institutional reflexes are now definitely Hindutvawadi reflexes. The moment an accusation is made against a Muslim, involving a Muslim, the administration rushes its bulldozer. The moment an accusation is made, there's not even a gap of 5 minutes or 10 minutes or a day. It's not even a matter of thought. It happens as a reflex action. So an accusation, an incident takes place in which a Muslim boy stabs a Hindu boy. And this definitely is a very serious thing, but there are two adolescents involved. One stabs a Hindu boy gets injured. What does the administration do? Administration rushes its bulldozer to demolish the house where the boy and boy's family lived.
Right.
Now, what is strange is that even the boy's family didn't own that house.
Right.
It was owned Hindu, and
I
there were
see.
4 other families living there. But the house was demolished. And now we have dozens of cases in which the administration has bulldozed houses of Muslims because public demanded it. That is what district administration says, that this is public demand, and we have to satisfy the public. So now you don't need mobs.
It
Administration
has
and
become the mob. Can one say that?
earlier mobs used to destroy houses. Mobs used to destroy Muslim establishments. Now the administration has taken that role, and
Right.
administration is destroying the houses of Muslims. So what we see, unfortunately, is that the mandate, which was the direction, was for the politics to be more inclusive, polity to be more inclusive. The message was also that our corporate life, the life we live together, it needs to be more inclusive. We need to be more tolerant, because this was the mandate. But what we have seen is that the mandate has emboldened anti-Muslim hatred, anti-Muslim violence, and now the administration is proactively taking part in anti-Muslim violence, and the judiciary is watching, and it is in a muted form.
Correct. Let me ask you something related, which emerges out of what you were saying. In the last few decades, there has been a greater shift within the thinking of the society at large in very significant parts of India. I'm not saying whole of India, but very significant parts of India, especially in North and Western India. these parts of the country, there has been a greater amount of Islamophobia which has driven public consciousness. There is something which always haunts me. Is a friend of mine who is also a member of the Samajwadi Party many years ago in 2017, prior to the elections there. Generally, we were talking about how the political situation was unfurling in Uttar Pradesh. So he said that the BJP government may not have been able to do anything much, but they have been able to communicate one message very carefully, very cleverly. That is that they have fixed the Muslims. In Hindi, they said, Musalmano ko theek kar diya, meaning that they have been put on a tight leash. That sentiment has actually fetched the votes for the BJP. That is what the argument was. Now, in these elections, we saw that in Uttar Pradesh, it didn't work out in the favor of the BJP, but in several other states in the north, in Madhya Pradesh, for instance, in Chhattisgarh, also, that there was a vote in favor of the BJP overwhelming. Now, the developments in the last few decades had actually pushed the opposition parties to practicing what we in the media gave the label of soft Hindutva. Has that soft Hindutva been diluted, or does it remain the same in terms of opposition response to these, continuing attacks on Muslims which you referred to? Has there been some kind of a change in giving a public response of the opposition parties?
I don't see a significant change in the stance of opposition parties, because opposition parties have been very, very reluctant to even sympathize with Muslims who have been attacked, killed, or whose houses demolished.
Right.
They don't even go publicly to sympathize with them. And that has been the feature of Indian politics the last 10 years, and it continues. It took, I think, more than 75 days of constant, continuous attack and violence against Muslims across India for Rahul Gandhi to first time say that Muslims are being attacked. Whereas we saw Rahul Gandhi and all others visiting the houses of Dalit victims and other victims. And rightly so. They must go there. But Muslims don't deserve it. They don't deserve the sympathy of those they have voted for. They are shunned by them. And simply because these opposition leaders and parties have been telling Muslims that, if we are seen sympathizing with you, Hindus will get alienated from us. And we do need Hindu votes to keep you safe. So it's a very interesting thing. They need Hindu votes to win. They also need Muslim votes. And they tell Muslims that we cannot be seen sympathizing with you publicly, because then Hindus will get alienated from us. So to protect you, we need to distance ourselves from you. This is the argument of opposition parties being given to Muslims, and Muslims are asked to understand, to appreciate their difficulties. And again, sadly or ironically, Muslims do understand. Muslims do appreciate this difficulty of Hindu leaders, and they don't anymore expect them to come to sympathize with them even. Leave aside the question of asking for justice for them. This battle of justice, for justice, has to be fought by Muslims alone. And that's a sad and hard fact of Indian life today. You were asking about what has changed. And I said that nothing significant has changed. In Himachal Pradesh, we have been observing large, violent protests against Muslims. Very abusive, very hateful procession of Muslims. But Himachal Pradesh
attack on a mosque also in Shimla.
Attack on mosque in Shimla, forcing, and the pretext again is that Hindus were outraged. Why they were outraged? Because there was illegal construction in the mosque.
Right.
Now, there can be illegal construction because if you add one floor, it can be illegal. It may not be in the master plan that you have got approved from the authorities. It could be illegal, and we see such illegal acts being done in cases of houses everywhere,
Right.
uh, private houses, public buildings, etc., etc.,
Everywhere.
etc. But what is the logic? Suppose a additional floor is being added to a mosque. Why should it outrage Hindus? I don't understand. We have seen Hindu temples being expanded illegally on the dome. Do Hindus get outraged, or should Muslims get outraged by this? It does create inconvenience, and inconvenience it uh, is for all, for Hindus and Muslims, everyone. But why should Hindus get offended by additional floor or additional minar in a mosque? This is beyond comprehension. We can't comprehend it. It is all, one can only say that it is an unadulterated anti-Muslim hatred which drives it, which drives this outrage. And this is what we are observing in Himachal Pradesh. This morning, someone sent a video which was of a procession of Ganesh Chaturthi in Bihar,
Right.
and it was impossible to tolerate that video because it was full of abuses for Muslims. You are, for heaven's sake, you are taking out a procession of Ganesh Chaturthi. Why are you abusing Muslims? And these are filthy abuses. You just can't tolerate it. It's impossible. And Muslims are asked to tolerate it, to be tolerant, because Hindus are venting out their frustration. Frustration of what? For something Aurangzeb had done, or something which Jahangir had done, or something which Tipu Sultan had done. And Muslims are expected to tolerate this. This is what is happening. But no political leader tells his or her Hindu constituents that this is not the way. This is not the way you live in a civilized society. No political leader has the courage to tell his or her constituents, who are largely Hindus,
Right.
that this is very uncivilized, this is unbecoming of a democratic society, and they need to restrain themselves. And if they have prejudices, they need to keep those prejudices deep within their hearts or somewhere else, and not let it be
Right.
expressed the way it is being expressed now. So uh, this is how I see these things. And last 10 years, it has increased manifold. We talk about Muslims, but I must also say that we don't talk about attacks on Christians.
Right.
And they happen every day in Uttar Pradesh, in Himachal Pradesh, in hills, everywhere. You say, and they are not even registered. Newspapers don't report them. It's left to Christian organizations to keep recording those attacks.
Right.
So priests are arrested, houses are broken into. A Bajrang Dal mob can just walk into your house and attack you. You are hosting a birthday party, and you can be attacked, alleging that you are indulging in acts of conversion, and police will arrest you. That is what is happening across India. So we also need to talk about it. And sadly, this Islamophobia is not confined to only so-called Hindi-speaking states and western part of India. Only 3 days back, a friend who had returned from Arunachal Pradesh, she said that she saw expressions of anti-Muslim hatred in Arunachal Pradesh. We know that it's happening in Kerala.
Yes.
It's there in Karnataka. So we need to recognize that this sickness, this disease, is widespread in Hindu society, and Hindu society needs to think about it. It's seriously diseased, and it has become like the German society of the Weimar and post-Weimar era.
Right.
That is where we have reached, and it's a very, very serious thing.
Right. In fact, there are very strong, there have been several legislations which have been passed and which have been strengthened, like it was done by the Uttar Pradesh government very recently, the anti-conversion laws. So I think that there is a situation where we can actually do a comparison of various legislative measures which have been taken in India, in the sense that laws against so-called love jihad, laws against land jihad, which is being claimed by Himanta Biswa Sarma, the Chief Minister of Assam. You can just use the word jihad very you know without any hesitation on just about on anything. Compare them with the Nuremberg laws, which were passed in the late 1930s in Germany, when it was under the control of Hitler. So while there is that at one level which calls for greater study and trying to understand, what do you make out of, you talked about the participation of the state as becoming a virtual mob. What do you make out of instances like a large number of retired judges, even of the Supreme Court, participating in a Vishwa Hindu Parishad meeting to discuss what is their future can be done as far as demolishing a mosque's agenda is concerned? I'm using the word demolishing mosque because after the Babri Masjid's demolition and what is happening in Varanasi and Mathura and even Bhojshala in Madhya Pradesh, there should not be any doubt that the intention is to keep on having more demolitions of mosques which allegedly are built on Hindu temples of the past. That and also this bringing religion into the public space. The Prime Minister going to visit the Chief Justice of India on a Ganesh festival while prayers are going on in home. These and sharing that in public, while it could have been a private act if the matter was not shared, but it was shared. And because of the imminence of the Maharashtra elections, Mr. Modi tweets not just in Marathi, but he also comes dressed in a attire which is considered to be more Maharashtrian than anything else. So, what do you make out of all these?
First, you rightly talked about what the state governments are doing, and let's understand this: how minorities, Muslims and Christians, are being persecuted in this country, and this persecution has now become routine. And how it has become routine is happening in three ways, and we have talked about it earlier, but let's repeat it. One level is the root of laws or executive orders, laws which are passed by governments. You talked about anti-conversion laws. Now they have become so serious that only 2 days back, Muslim clerics were sentenced for life for the crime of conversion. Now this is extraordinary, and we must talk about it. That how can you jail someone for life, alleging that he or she had converted Hindus to
Islam.
Islam? So, but they have been jailed for life, and we need to talk about it. So we have laws like anti-conversion law, freedom of religion laws, so-called anti-love jihad laws, and now law after law is being passed in Assam.
Yes.
And you refer to the statements of the Chief Minister of Assam. If Assam is affected by flood, he says that it is flood jihad.
Right, yeah.
So Muslims are responsible for it. If there is a rise in prices of vegetables, he says that it's vegetable jihad. And Mia Muslims are responsible. And he says very openly that he won't allow Muslims to dominate. He says very openly on the floor of the assembly that he is partisan and he won't allow Mia Muslims to take over Assam. Now, this is a very provocative statement, and we have seen its result in Assam. Well, 2 days back, two Muslims were killed in again in bulldozer action. They were killed, and bulldozer is plying in an unhindered manner in Assam, evicting thousands and thousands of Muslims on a daily basis.
Right.
So one is law, second is executive order, and second level is this action by the administration, where it takes out bulldozer and GCB machines. Apart from that is the mob violence
Right.
by Bajrang Dal, Vishwa Hindu Parishad, and now there are hundreds and hundreds of organizations which work in the name of Hindus and which are actually anti-Muslim organizations.
Right.
Now there are hundreds of them across India which indulge in acts of violence. Add to that the defamation campaign which big media unleashes against Muslims. We saw it in the times of Corona, and it continues, defaming Muslims, abusing Muslims. Now, added to this is what you were referring in your statement, was the attitude of judiciary. So it's not a coincidence that recently when Vishwa Hindu Parishad organized an event, we saw many ex-justices there. They were there. But they don't wait to be ex-justices while in office, while sitting in their chair as justices. They make remarks and statements which are Islamophobic and which are Hindutwadi remarks.
Right.
And they are numerous now. They also give orders which can be called Hindutwadi orders or which go against the spirit of the constitution. For example, the CGI himself allowed survey of Gyanvapi Mosque. And what was the argument? The argument was, well, I am curious to know what is inside the mosque.
That's right. Ascertaining the character does not mean changing it. That was the exact statement.
So I call it the jurisprudence of curiosity. Now I am curious about what is in your house, Nilanjanji. So I would be allowed to survey your bedroom or your study. I would be allowed that because I'm not making a claim on the title of your house.
Right.
I'm only satisfying my curiosity. So this is the route the CGI took, and where it has led now us. Now it's impossible to control that because in Gyanvapi now Hindu puja is being done. It has been allowed by the Supreme Court even.
That's right.
And it has opened a floodgate. Now mosque after mosque. So this is what CGI has done. And CGI by his private actions, because he also he was in some state of South India, I'm forgetting the name of that state. So this time when you were referring to the visit of the Prime Minister to his house, people say that Prime Minister took his camera crew as his habit, and got him filmed with the CGI and embarrassed the CGI. But the CGI himself ensured that he be filmed while making visits to temples. And he also said that when he looks at Dharma Dhwajas, it reminds him of justice.
Right.
So he did it in his own clever way. So what we see is a kind of alliance between judiciary and majoritarian politics of Bharatiya Janata Party, and the ideology of Bharatiya Janata Party is now becoming the ideology of the state.
Right. The lines of separation indeed are getting blurred and completely erased. Let me come to one development which has happened since the verdict. This is something, which we may not know because we are not part of that political ecosystem. But purely as outsiders, I would like to understand from you, how do you see these repeated, verbal assaults without taking the name of the RSS chief, Mohan Bhagwat? In June, he talked about, within a week of the verdict, he talked about, who is the ideal sevak, or the primary, carer, sevak. Then the matter became, one of, people considering themselves as gods. So there have been a series of statements which he's made in the last 3 months. At least about 3 to 4 statements have been made. Do you think that, or rather, let me put it this way, that does this kind of an intervention give the impression that everything is not united within the Sangh Parivar, and that there is some kind of an effort to keep the government under check?
Yes, I think there's tension between the RSS and Narendra Modi, and it's very visible. And that tension has to be recognized. That tension is very much there. There is a trade-off, and we must also recognize this trade-off and the importance of this trade-off. And I was told by an RSS man that could you imagine the RSS Supremo, the Sarsang Chalak, enjoying the ride of private jet or enjoying the kind of security that he has been given? It was unimaginable. And was it possible without Mr. Modi? This is what he asked. And he also said that was it possible in the dreams of RSS Pracharaks that they would enjoy the kind of comfort they are enjoying now? So RSS Pracharaks are sitting in ministries, they are directing ministries, they are privy to many of the files of the ministries. That is common knowledge. Sanskar Bharati has easy access to everything that is under the umbrella of culture, and Sanskar Bharati controls it. Similarly, for other organizations of
Education
RSS,
also.
Education, culture, everywhere. So they are flush with funds. They are rebuilding their head office, headquarters in Delhi and elsewhere. So RSS has been bribed effectively to keep it silent. That is one. But again, RSS cannot tolerate the idea of its authority being decimated by a pracharak of RSS, which was deputed by RSS and lent to BJP. This is Narendra Modi, who was given by RSS to BJP. Now, Narendra Modi is controlling RSS, and Narendra Modi wants to be owner of RSS. This and the RSS is struggling to keep its supremacy. So what is happening now is an attempt by RSS to assert its authority. That is what, by making indirect jibes and comments, Mohan Bhagwat is trying to do. But again, it's a very interesting and strange situation, because now there is a extreme right, which is right to RSS, which has also emerged. So
That is all.
RSS looks softer if you look at this right, which is very violent, which is independent of RSS, and which is very sure that when it indulges in violence, RSS will be forced, or BJP will be forced to protect it. As I said, there are hundreds of organizations which now entertain this far right ideology. The fountainhead, of course, is RSS. But now these are organizations which are autonomous of RSS. So there is this tension. Now, there are also personalities like Adityanath, who entertains this idea, and Himant Biswa Sarma, the new man, and others too. They are trying to follow Narendra Modi and Adityanath and Himant Biswa Sarma. So there is a competition between the chief ministers and leaders of Bharatiya
Who
Janata
can
Party.
be a better Modi than Modi himself?
Who can be a better Modi or worse Modi, we should say, than Modi himself?
That's true.
So
That's better.
it's a threefold or four layered competition that is going on, and tension between RSS and this far right, between RSS and Modi, between Modi and Adityanath. And so what would RSS do? Will RSS patronize Adityanath? Because Adityanath is strong in his own way, and that is how he forced BJP to make him chief minister when he became chief minister, because he
Right.
was not first choice. All of us know that, but he forced. And Narendra Modi also forced RSS, because Narendra Modi had the backing of the corporate India.
Right.
And Narendra Modi said that, well, I have money, you don't have money. And the corporate world was carried Narendra Modi on its shoulders to Delhi. That is
Right.
how it's seen. And RSS has to obey this corporate world. So we see that it's a very strange situation RSS now finds itself. Whether it will get out of it or remain entangled in it is yet to be seen. But again, it doesn't matter what is the relationship between these two, because it affects Muslims
Right.
in a very insignificant way. The attack on Muslims continue, and the plight of minorities continue. They have increased. So it can be a matter of discussion for us, that will RSS win or will Narendra Modi win, but it doesn't change the condition for Muslims and Christians
Right.
and others.
I think that's well put. And, on this note, we must take note of the fact that, at the completion of 100 days of this government, a landmark which is fairly significant, those who are ideologically or have differences with the center, and with the government, with the Bharatiya Janata Party, they need to be more assertive. Let us see. There is what happens ahead. This is going to be a period of churn, and I hope that in the coming months, as more political developments take place, Professor Apoorvanand, we will come back to you and continue this discussion. These has to actually be a discussions of covering the entire 360 degrees all around, and that is what we can do on this platform. Thank you very much for joining.
If you allow, before you conclude,
Yes.
we should also note that in these 100 days, what has happened is that India is now in a situation of alienation from its neighbors. So
Right.
it's more than ever, it is alienated from Bangladesh, from other countries, and there is resentment in the neighbors against India. So India has weakened to a great extent, internally and externally.
Possibly given us an idea for a discussion in the subsequent weeks, that India and its neighbors, how much we have got alienated. Never before has there been this degree of alienation. Thank you once again for joining us today.